In the ancient kingdom of Eldoria, nestled between towering mountains and whispering forests where legends were born from the mists of time, there lived a young prince named Aaron who dreamed of greatness beyond the stone walls of his father's castle. But little did he know that a fateful discovery would thrust him into a web of mystery and destruction that would echo through history forever. For it all began on a stormy night in the year 1023 when Aaron, restless and driven by tales of lost treasures from his childhood nanny, ventured into the forbidden ruins of the old temple hidden deep in the Shadow Woods, a place cursed by the elders who warned that no man should disturb the slumbering spirits there. Yet Aaron's curiosity burned brighter than the lightning that cracked the sky above, leading him through tangled vines and crumbling arches until he stumbled upon a hidden chamber bathed in an eerie glow from a single shaft of moonlight piercing the cracked ceiling. And there, upon a pedestal of weathered marble, sat the crown of destiny, a magnificent artifact forged from gold and embedded with jewels that seemed to pulse with their own inner life, as if alive and waiting for the right soul to claim it. But as Aaron reached out with trembling hands, a voice echoed in his mind, not from the air but from within, whispering ancient words in a language long forgotten, promising power and glory but hinting at a price too steep to imagine. And in that moment, the crown seemed to choose him, lifting itself slightly as if drawn to his touch, settling perfectly on his brow with a warmth that spread through his veins like fire, igniting visions of conquests and kingdoms united under his rule. Yet as he emerged from the ruins with the crown hidden under his cloak, the storm raged fiercer, trees bending as if in warning, and unbeknownst to him, shadows stirred in the darkness. Ancient guardians awakened by his bold act, setting in motion a chain of events that would unravel the very fabric of Eldoria. For the crown was no ordinary relic but a vessel of fate crafted by the long-lost sorcerers of the Elder Age, designed to select a king worthy of its power, but cursed to destroy the kingdom if the chosen one faltered in virtue or succumbed to greed, a secret buried in forgotten scrolls that Aaron would soon uncover. But for now, as he rode back to the castle under the pouring rain, his heart pounded with excitement, unaware that spies from rival lands had already caught wind of unusual lights in the woods, whispering rumors of a reborn artifact that could shift the balance of power across the continent. And among them was the cunning Lord Varen, a noble from the neighboring realm of Drakmor, who had long coveted Eldoria's fertile lands and had his own dark ambitions fueled by forbidden knowledge from occult books smuggled from distant empires, plotting to seize the crown for himself and use its magic to forge an unstoppable army. But as Aaron slipped into his chambers that night, removing the crown and staring at its shimmering surface in the candlelight, he felt a strange compulsion, as if the crown was whispering secrets of his father's hidden weaknesses, revelations that the king, old King Harlan, had been poisoning his own advisors to maintain control, a betrayal that shook Aaron to his core and planted the first seeds of doubt in his loyal heart, making him question if the crown was a gift or a trap designed to expose the rot within the royal family. And as dawn broke, Aaron decided to keep his fine secret, hiding the crown in a locked chest beneath his bed. But strange occurrences began almost immediately, with servants reporting ghostly apparitions in the halls, whispers of doom echoing through the stone corridors, and crops in the fields withering overnight as if blighted by an unseen force, causing the villagers to murmur of a curse descending upon the land, blaming it on the king's recent harsh taxes. But Aaron knew deep down it was linked to the crown, for each time he donned it in private, new visions assaulted him, showing glimpses of a future where he sat on the throne, but surrounded by ruins and flames, a kingdom in ashes with him as the last survivor, haunted by the ghosts of his people. Yet the allure was too strong, the promise of wisdom and strength pulling him deeper into its mystery, and soon he confided in his closest friend, the scholarly scribe Elara, a wise woman with eyes like polished emeralds who had studied ancient texts in the royal library, and together they pored over dusty tomes late into the night, discovering fragments of a prophecy that spoke of the crown of destiny choosing a king to unite the realms but demanding a sacrifice of blood and loyalty, warning that if the king failed to heed its trials, the kingdom would crumble from within, eroded by betrayal and madness. But as they delved deeper, Elara uncovered a chilling detail, that the crown had been worn by 3 kings before, each rising to power only to fall in tragedy, the first driven mad by visions that revealed his wife's infidelity, leading him to execute her and spark a civil war, the second granting him victory in battles but at the cost of his son's life in a mysterious accident, and the third vanishing entirely. His kingdom swallowed by a great earthquake that legends claimed was the earth's wrath for his hubris. Stories that made Aaron's blood run cold, yet he couldn't resist. Wearing it again, feeling its power course through him, enhancing his senses and granting him insights into court intrigues, like overhearing a plot by his uncle, Duke Thorn, to assassinate the king and claim the throne for himself, a revelation that forced Aaron to act swiftly, confronting his uncle in the dead of night with evidence conjured from the crown's whispers, but instead of gratitude. King Harlan grew suspicious of how Aaron knew such secrets, planting the first rift between father and son, as whispers spread through the castle of the prince's unnatural luck, and meanwhile, Lord Varen's spies infiltrated the borders, disguised as merchants, gathering tales of the strange happenings and piecing together that the prince had found something extraordinary, sending ravens back to Drakmor with coded messages that ignited Varen's obsession, leading him to consult a shadowy oracle in the mountains who foretold that the crown would choose its true master through a series of tests. But only one who could withstand its temptations would wield it without doom, a prophecy that Varen twisted to believe meant him, for he had no kingdom to lose, only one to gain, and as days turned to weeks, Aaron noticed changes in himself, his dreams filled with cryptic symbols of a labyrinthine maze where he chased a shadowy figure wearing a duplicate crown, always one step ahead. Waking in sweats with the crown glowing faintly in its chest as if calling him back, and Alara, growing concerned, urged him to destroy it, but Aaron refused, convinced it was his destiny to use it for good, to reform the kingdom's injustices like the starving peasants in the outer villages, and so he began secretly implementing changes, advising his father on policies that seemed inspired, earning praise from the people but envy from the nobles, who plotted in shadowed corners, unaware that the crown was feeding Aaron their schemes, heightening the suspense as he navigated this dangerous game. But one fateful evening, during a grand feast celebrating the harvest, a masked assassin slipped into the hall, dagger poised at King Harlan's back, and it was Aaron's enhanced instincts from the crown that allowed him to spot the threat, leaping to intercept and saving his father's life. But in the chaos, the crown slipped from its hiding place in his satchel, rolling across the floor for all to see, gasps filling the room as the jewels caught the torchlight. And King Harlan's eyes widened in recognition, for he too had heard the old tales, demanding to know where Aaron had found it. But before Aaron could explain, a tremor shook the castle, dust falling from the ceilings as if the earth itself protested the crown's reveal, and in that moment of confusion, a servant loyal to Duke Thorn snatched the crown and fled into the night, pursued by guards, but vanishing into the woods like a ghost, leaving Aaron stunned and the king furious, accusing his son of treachery, ordering him confined to his quarters while investigations began. But Aaron, sensing the crown's pull even from afar, knew it wasn't lost, for its voice still whispered in his mind, guiding him to escape through a secret passage he suddenly remembered from childhood dreams, slipping out under the cover of darkness to reclaim what had chosen him, unaware that Lord Varen's forces were already mobilizing at the borders, drawn by reports of the artifact's emergence, setting the stage for a conflict that would test loyalties and unravel secrets long buried. As the mystery deepened with each passing hour, the crown's true nature still shrouded in enigma, its power a double-edged sword that promised kingship but hinted at inevitable ruin. And as Aaron ventured back into the shadow woods, following an invisible thread of fate, he encountered a cloaked figure waiting in the ruins, the servant who had stolen the crown. But upon closer look, it was no ordinary servant but a disguised Alara, who revealed she had taken it to protect him, confessing her own hidden lineage as a descendant of the elder sorcerers, with knowledge that the crown required a ritual to fully bond with its chosen. A ceremony involving blood and ancient incantations that could either empower him eternally or curse the land with eternal night. A revelation that left Aaron reeling, for now the suspense mounted as he weighed trusting her against the crown's insistent whispers warning of betrayal, and together they hid in the temple's depths, performing the first steps of the ritual under the moonlight. But as the words were spoken, visions flooded Aaron's mind again, showing not just his future but fragments of the past, how the crown was forged in a time of war to end all wars, infused with the souls of fallen kings to judge the worthy, but corrupted by a dark spell from a jealous wizard who sought to ensure no kingdom lasted forever, a cycle of rise and fall that had repeated through centuries. And now it was Aaron's turn to break or perpetuate it. But as the ritual progressed, distant horns sounded from the castle, signaling the king's search parties drawing near, forcing them to flee deeper into the woods, the crown secure, but its power awakening strange phenomena, like animals gathering unnaturally around them as if drawn to its aura, and whispers from the trees themselves echoing warnings of impending doom, heightening the mystery as Aaron questioned if the crown was truly choosing him, or using him as a pawn in a larger game, perhaps to destroy Eldoria from within to make way for a new era. And as they camped by a hidden stream, Elara shared more lore, explaining that the crown's jewels each represented a virtue: courage, wisdom, justice, mercy, and loyalty, and that to master it, Aaron must face trials testing each, the first being courage, which manifested that very night as a spectral warrior appeared from the mists, challenging Aaron to a duel not of swords but of wills, forcing him to confront his deepest fears of failure and loss, and as he stared into the ghost's hollow eyes, memories of his mother's death in childbirth resurfaced, twisted by the crown into accusations that he was the cause, testing his resolve, but Aaron stood firm, declaring his intent to rule with honor, banishing the specter and feeling the crown's warmth intensify, affirming his passage of the first trial, yet exhausting him, leaving him vulnerable as dawn approached, and unbeknownst to them, Duke Thorn had allied with Lord Varen, exchanging information for promises of shared power. Their combined spies tracking the fugitive's trail, closing in with armed men, adding layers of suspense as Aaron and Elara pressed on, the kingdom teetering on the brink of chaos with the king ill from worry, rumors of rebellion stirring among the oppressed peasants who saw the strange events as signs of divine discontent, and in the capital, courtiers schemed, some loyal to the old ways, others sensing opportunity in the turmoil, while far away in Drakmor, Varen prepared his invasion. Consulting maps and gathering allies from shadowy guilds, convinced the crown's power would make him invincible. But the oracle's words haunted him, hinting that the true chosen might not be who he thought, planting seeds of doubt even in his iron will. And back in the woods, as Aaron recovered from the trial, the crown revealed the next challenge: wisdom, manifesting as a riddle etched in glowing runes on an ancient stone they stumbled upon, a puzzle that spoke of rivers that flow without water, fires that burn without flame, and kings who rule without crowns, demanding a solution to proceed. And as Aaron pondered, Elara aided with her knowledge, suggesting the answer lay in metaphors of time, emotion, and influence, leading them to whisper time, love, and fear, unlocking the stone to reveal a hidden cache of scrolls detailing the crown's full history, including a map to a forgotten sanctuary where the final bonding could occur. But as they studied it, arrows whistled through the air, ambushed by Thorn's men, forcing a desperate escape, Aaron using the crown's enhanced strength to fight off attackers, but not without wounds, blood staining the ground as they fled, the pursuit relentless, building tension as the mystery unfolded further, for one captured scroll hinted at a twin crown lost in time, a counterpart that could counter the destruction if united, sparking hope amid the peril. And as night fell again, they reached the edge of the mountains, the sanctuary distant but calling. With the kingdom's fate hanging by a thread, Aaron's choices echoing the prophecies. Warnings. The crown's choice clear but its consequences veiled in shadows that promised more revelations in the trials ahead, each step drawing him closer to kingship or catastrophe, the air thick with suspense as unseen forces watched, waiting for the moment when the destroyer would be revealed. As Aaron and Elara pressed onward through the treacherous mountain paths, the air thick with suspense as unseen forces watched, waiting for the moment when the destroyer would be revealed. Their footsteps echoed softly against the jagged rocks that seemed to whisper secrets of their own, remnants of ancient battles fought long before Eldoria's banners flew high. And with the crown of destiny now pulsing faintly in Aaron's satchel like a living heart, its warmth a constant reminder of the trials ahead, they climbed higher into the mist-shrouded peaks where the wind howled like mournful spirits, carrying echoes of forgotten cries that made Elara clutch her cloak tighter, her emerald eyes scanning the fog for signs of pursuit, for they knew Duke Thorn's men were not far behind, their torches flickering like distant stars in the valley below, driven by promises of gold and glory from their treacherous lord who had sold his soul to Lord Varen's ambitions. And as the duo navigated narrow ledges slick with dew, Aaron felt the crown's influence growing stronger, feeding him flashes of insight into the path ahead, revealing hidden crevices that led to safer routes, but also tormenting him with visions of betrayal, showing shadowy figures in the king's court plotting his downfall, including his own half-sister, Princess Lyra, whom he had always trusted as a confidant but now saw in the crown's revelations whispering poisons into their father's ear, accusing Aaron of sorcery and theft to secure her own claim to the throne, a shocking twist that gnawed at his heart like a venomous serpent, forcing him to question every bond he held dear. Yet he pushed on, driven by the prophecies pulled toward the forgotten sanctuary marked on the ancient map, a place said to be guarded by illusions and riddles that only the worthy could pierce. And as night deepened, they found shelter in a shallow cave carved by time's relentless hand, where Alara lit a small fire with flint and dry moss, its flames dancing shadows on the walls that seemed to form faces of long-dead kings, judging them silently. And over the crackling embers, Alara shared more of her hidden heritage, revealing that her ancestors had been the keepers of the crown, tasked with hiding it after the last king's fall to prevent further catastrophe. But a faction among them had betrayed the order, scattering the knowledge and creating the twin crown as a failsafe, a relic of balance that could temper the destructive force if reunited, though its location was lost in myths of a distant sea kingdom beyond the endless waves, sparking Aaron's imagination with possibilities of alliance and adventure. But also dread at the vastness of the quest, for time was slipping away as reports from scouts, gleaned through the crown's whispers, told of unrest in Eldoria, with peasants rising in small pockets of rebellion, their fields barren and livestock dying from the curses spread, blaming the royal family for invoking dark magics, and King Harlan, weakened by illness that the crown had subtly induced as a test of loyalty, issued decrees for Aaron's capture dead or alive, his once fatherly love twisted into paranoia by the artifact's lingering aura that had seeped into the castle stones, while in Drakmor, Lord Varen assembled his war council in a grand hall adorned with tapestries of conquered foes, his sharp features illuminated by candlelight as he pored over stolen maps of Eldoria's defenses, his spies confirming the prince's flight into the mountains, and with a sly grin, he dispatched elite trackers skilled in mountain warfare, men clad in black leather and armed with poisoned blades, sworn to bring the crown or Aaron's head, whichever came first. But Varen's own doubts festered, for the oracle's cryptic words replayed in his mind. The crown chooses not the strongest, but the one who bears the weight of ruin, making him wonder if his greed would be his undoing. Yet he suppressed it with ruthless ambition, forging alliances with mercenary bands from the wild north, promising them shares of Eldoria's riches. And back in the cave, as Aaron dozed fitfully, the crown summoned the next trial, justice, manifesting in a dreamscape where he stood as judge in an ethereal court, facing accusations from spectral villagers whose homes had burned in past royal wars, demanding he weigh the scales of retribution against mercy. And in the vision, he saw his father's past sins, unjust executions of innocents to quell uprisings, laid bare, forcing Aaron to choose between condemning the king to atone or forgiving to preserve unity. A heart-wrenching decision that tested his sense of right. And upon waking with a start, sweat beading his brow, he felt the crown approve his choice of balanced justice, granting him a surge of clarity that revealed a hidden spring nearby for water, but also warning of an approaching storm brewed by the artifact's magic to deter pursuers. And as thunder rumbled overhead, rain pouring in sheets that turned paths to mudslides, Alara and Aaron huddled closer, sharing stories of their youth to bolster spirits, she of her scholarly pursuits in forbidden libraries, he of his adventures hunting in the woods with loyal hounds now likely turned against him by the king's orders, forging a bond deeper than friendship, tinged with unspoken affection that added layers to their perilous journey. Yet suspense built as distant shouts echoed up the slopes, Thorn's men braving the deluge, their determination fueled by fear of their duke's wrath. And in a narrow pass, the fugitives were cornered, forced into a skirmish where Aaron, empowered by the crown, wielded his sword with unnatural precision, disarming two attackers while Alara used her knowledge of herbs to fling a blinding powder concocted from cave fungi, allowing escape but not without Aaron sustaining a gash on his arm, blood mixing with rain as they pressed on, the wound throbbing as a reminder of mortality amid the crown's gifts. And as they crested a ridge at dawn, the sanctuary came into view, a crumbling citadel perched on a cliffside, its spires piercing the clouds like fingers reaching for the heavens, guarded by an illusory fog that shifted shapes to confuse intruders. But the crown guided Aaron through, parting the mists to reveal a grand archway inscribed with runes that glowed at his approach, welcoming the chosen. Yet inside, the air grew heavy with ancient power, dust motes dancing in beams of light filtering through cracked domes. And at the center stood an altar of crystal, pulsing in sync with the crown, awaiting the ritual's completion. But before they could begin, a betrayal unfolded, for Alara hesitated, her hand trembling as she revealed a dagger hidden in her sleeve, confessing under duress from visions the crown had sent her to, that she was not just a descendant but the prophesied guardian who must test the Chosen's mercy by attempting sacrifice, a twist that shattered Aaron's trust. Forcing a confrontation where he disarmed her gently, choosing forgiveness over vengeance, passing the mercy trial unwittingly. And as tears streamed down her face, she explained it was the crown's way to ensure purity of heart, restoring their alliance stronger than before. But the moment was short-lived as horns blared outside, Baron's trackers having breached the outer illusions through dark counter-magic from a captured sorcerer in their ranks, leading to a siege on the sanctuary. Arrows raining down as Aaron and Alara barricaded the doors with fallen stones, the prince donning the crown, fully for the first time since the ritual's start, its power flooding him with strategies of defense, summoning ethereal barriers that repelled the assailants temporarily, yet draining his vitality, his vision blurring as the artifact demanded more, hinting at the final trial of loyalty, which manifested as a temptation vision of ruling alone, abandoning Alara to her fate for absolute power. A lure he resisted by vowing to share the burden, solidifying the bond and unlocking the crown's full potential, allowing him to project illusions of an army charging from the mists, scattering the attackers in panic, buying time to complete the ritual at the altar, where Aaron pricked his finger, letting blood drip onto the crystal that absorbed it with a radiant glow, chanting words Alara provided from memory, binding the crown to his soul but awakening its destructive side, for as the ceremony peaked, tremors shook the mountains, avalanches thundering down slopes, burying some pursuers and signaling the curse's escalation across Eldoria, with rivers flooding villages and skies darkening unnaturally, reports later whispering of omens like blood rain in the capital, heightening the mystery as Aaron emerged transformed, eyes glowing with otherworldly light, ready to return and claim his throne, but haunted by prophecies of ruin, for the crown now revealed fragments of the destroyer's identity, not him, but perhaps an unsuspected ally or foe, twisting the narrative further. And as they descended the peaks, evading remnants of the enemy, word spread through carrier pigeons of King Harlan's worsening condition, the court in disarray with Lyra assuming regency, her ambitions clashing with loyalists, while Varen, undeterred by losses, rallied more forces at the border, declaring open war under pretext of aiding against the Cursed Prince, his armies marching with siege engines and banners of conquest. The continent on the brink of a larger conflict involving neutral realms drawn by rumors of the artifact's power, and in hidden glades along the way, Aaron and Alara encountered wandering hermits who shared folklore of the Twin Crown, pointing to clues in old seafarer tales of a sunken temple off the coast of Marida, a kingdom of mariners known for their enchanted ships, sparking a side quest in Aaron's mind to seek it before the destruction peaked. But immediate dangers loomed as they infiltrated a border town disguised as pilgrims, overhearing tavern gossip of bounties on their heads, with sketches circulated by Thorn's spies, forcing stealthy movements through alleys shadowed by moonlight, where Aaron used the crown's whispers to detect hidden watchers, avoiding ambushes but confronting a moral dilemma when a young informant, a boy no older than 12, spotted them, and Aaron chose mercy again, sparing him and gaining an unlikely ally who provided food and a safe path. Reinforcing the theme of virtue amid chaos, yet the suspense mounted with each league closer to the castle, visions assaulting Aaron of the kingdom's fall, towers crumbling, fires raging, people fleeing as shadows consumed the land, a foretelling that urged haste, but also caution, for the crown hinted at a greater conspiracy, that the dark spell corrupting it was cast by an ancestor of Varen's, linking their fates in a cycle of vengeance, and as they camped in a forgotten grove sacred to old gods, Alara performed minor rites to soothe the crown's agitation, revealing through trance that the destroyer was one who wielded the crown without completing all trials, implying Aaron must face an ultimate choice: destroy the artifact or embrace its ruin to rebuild anew, a philosophical quandary that deepened the mystery. While far in the royal chambers, King Harlan, on his deathbed, confessed to a trusted advisor his own youthful encounter with the crown's legends, regretting not seeking it himself. His last breaths cursing Aaron's name, unaware his son was the key to salvation or doom, and in Drakmor, Varen consulted forbidden grimoires, summoning minor demons for glimpses of the future, seeing victory but at the cost of his sanity, driving him to accelerate the invasion, crossing borders with thousands under cover of night, clashing with Eldoria's outposts in skirmishes that spilled first blood, alerting the kingdom to war, and as messengers raced to the capital, panic ensued. Nobles fleeing with treasures, peasants arming with pitchforks, the air electric with fear, yet Aaron, sensing the shifts through the crown, quickened his pace, arriving at the kingdom's fringes amid chaos, infiltrating loyalist camps to rally supporters, whispering of his divine right proven by the artifact, gaining a small band of followers including disillusioned knights who saw the curse's signs as calls for change, building tension as clandestine meetings in barns and cellars plotted the prince's return. But betrayals lurked, for one knight was a double agent. For Lyra, reporting their positions, leading to a midnight raid where Aaron barely escaped, the crown saving him by amplifying his voice to command surrender, a power that awed his allies but terrified him with its growing dominance, hinting at loss of self if unchecked, and pressing deeper into familiar lands, they witnessed the curse's toll, withered orchards, ghostly apparitions haunting crossroads, villagers speaking in tongues of impending apocalypse, a tableau of mystery that fueled superstitions, with some hailing Aaron as savior upon sighting him, others branding him harbinger of end times, dividing the populace, and in a pivotal encounter at an old mill, Duke Thorn himself ambushed them with a personal guard, a fierce duel ensuing where Aaron, crown-enhanced, matched the Duke's seasoned blade, uncovering mid-fight through visions that Thorn was his illegitimate uncle, a family secret fueling the betrayal. And in a moment of hesitation, Aaron spared him too, binding him as prisoner to extract confessions that exposed Lyra's plots and Varen's spies within the court, a revelation that shifted alliances, sending Thorn's men scattering or switching sides, bolstering Aaron's force to a modest army, yet the cost was high, with Alara wounded in the fray, her arms slashed, forcing a delay to tend her with herbal poultices, during which she confessed her growing love, adding emotional depth to their saga. And as she healed, they planned the assault on the castle, using secret tunnels Aaron recalled from boyhood, but the crown warned of traps laid by Lyra, who had fortified the walls with archers and boiling oil, her regency iron-fisted, executing dissenters to maintain control. Her heart hardened by jealousy of Aaron's favored status, and as the invasion from Drakmor intensified, border towns falling in flames, refugees streaming inward, the kingdom's army stretched thin, creating opportunity for Aaron's stealthy approach, slipping through undergrowth and rivers, the groups swelling with defectors drawn by tales of the glowing crown, seen as a beacon of hope or omen of fate, and in the dead of night, they emerged in the castle's undercroft, navigating labyrinthine passages echoing with drips and rat scurries, suspense peaking as guards patrolled above, their boots thumping like heartbeats, and bursting into the throne room, Aaron confronted Lyra seated on the throne, her eyes widening at the sight of the crown atop his head, radiating power that silenced the room. But she rallied, ordering attacks, leading to a chaotic melee where loyalties fractured. Some guards turning to Aaron upon hearing his proclamations of justice and reform, others fighting fiercely for the status quo, and in the clash, King Harlan, wheeled in on a litter, witnessed the fray, his faded eyes recognizing the artifact, uttering a final prophecy from delirium. The chosen must fall to save the whole. Before expiring, his death rallying more to Aaron's side, but Lyra, desperate, lunged with a poison needle, only to be intercepted by Alara, who took the strike, collapsing in agony, her sacrifice igniting Aaron's rage, yet he subdued Lyra without killing, honoring the trials, imprisoning her as the crown judged her unfit, and with the throne secured, cheers erupted from the gathered crowd. But victory was Pyrrhic, for Varen's main force breached the outer walls, siege towers rolling forward amid catapults hurling fire, the battle for Eldoria erupting in full, Aaron's newfound army clashing with invaders in the streets, blood staining cobblestones as the crown amplified his commands. Turning the tide with strategic brilliance, yet the curse crescendoed. Earthquakes splitting ground, swallowing soldiers from both sides, skies unleashing lightning that struck indiscriminately, revealing the destroyer's role, not a person, but the crown itself, designed to purge corruption through chaos. And in the battle's heart, Aaron faced Varen in single combat atop the battlements, blades singing as visions revealed Varen's lineage tied to the corrupting wizard, their duel a clash of fates. Eren prevailing by disarming him, but sparing life to break the cycle. Offering alliance instead, a shocking turn that Varen, humbled, accepted, withdrawing forces in exchange for shared knowledge of the Twin Crown. Yet as peace tentatively dawned, the artifact's power surged uncontrollably, visions showing the kingdom's inevitable fall unless sacrificed, forcing Eren to choose, retain the crown and rule amid ruins, or destroy it at the altar where it was bound. Releasing its souls but ending his enhanced reign, a cliffhanger decision as Alara, recovering from antidote, urged destruction for true peace, while whispers tempted eternal glory, the mystery resolving toward revelation but suspense lingering on the precipice of choice, unseen forces still watching as the air thickened once more with impending destiny. As Eren stood atop the battlements with the crown of destiny firmly upon his head, its jewels gleaming under the stormy skies that mirrored the turmoil in his soul. The mystery resolving toward revelation but suspense lingering on the precipice of choice, unseen forces still watching as the air thickened once more with impending destiny. He gazed out over the smoldering fields where Varen's retreating army left trails of smoke and abandoned weapons, the echoes of clashing steel fading into the wind like ghosts departing a haunted feast. Yet his victory felt hollow, for the crown's whispers grew louder. A chorus of ancient voices urging him toward the sanctuary's altar far in the mountains where the binding ritual had begun. Now demanding completion or sacrifice to quell the curse that continued to ravage Eldoria, with reports flooding in from weary messengers on foam-flecked horses speaking of villages swallowed by sinkholes, rivers turning to blood-red sludge that poisoned the fish and sickened the drinkers, and skies weeping acid rain that blistered skin and withered the last resilient crops, causing famine to stalk the land like a silent predator. While in the castle halls below, Alara lay in the healer's chambers, her wound from Lyra's poison slowly mending under poultices of rare herbs gathered from the shadow woods, her fevered dreams filled with visions of the Twin Crown calling from across the seas, a beacon of hope that could balance the destruction if found. And as Eren descended the stone steps worn smooth by generations of kings, his mind raced with the weight of decision. For destroying the crown meant relinquishing the power that had saved his people from invasion, returning to mortal rule with all its frailties, yet embracing it fully risked accelerating the ruin, turning Eldoria into a wasteland of forgotten glory, a dilemma that twisted his guts like a knotted rope. And in the throne room, now cleared of battle's debris with servants scrubbing blood from the marble floors, he convened a council of newfound allies, including the humbled Varen who sat at the table with bandaged wounds and a wary expression, his dark eyes reflecting the flickering torchlight as he shared tales from his family's forbidden archives, revealing that the corrupting wizard who had tainted the crown centuries ago was his great ancestor, a man named Zoltar who had sought immortality through dark pacts with shadow entities from the void, cursing the artifact to ensure no king endured, a cycle meant to feed those entities with souls of the fallen. Adding layers of cosmic horror to the mystery as Eren realized the unseen forces were not mere spirits, but interdimensional watchers hungry for chaos, and Thorn, chained but granted a voice for his blood ties, confessed more intrigues, admitting Lyra's plot was born from resentment over their mother's favoritism toward Eren, a family fracture deepened by hidden letters he produced from a secret pocket, yellowed pages detailing the queen's dying wishes for Eren to inherit not just the throne but a lost heirloom, the very crown. Unknowingly setting the prophecy in motion years before his birth, a revelation that humanized the betrayals and softened Eren's heart toward his imprisoned kin, yet suspense built as scouts reported stirrings in the northern wilds, where barbarian clans, drawn by omens of the crown's awakening, massed at the borders with war drums thundering like heartbeats of giants, their shamans interpreting the curses as signs from their gods to claim the artifact and forge a new empire from Eldoria's ashes. Forcing Eren to dispatch emissaries laden with gifts of gold and promises of alliance, but one returned with an arrow through his chest, a grim message etched on the shaft warning of impending assault unless the crown was surrendered, heightening the threats from all sides as internal dissent brewed among the nobles, some whispering that Eren's rule was tainted, plotting in wine-soaked chambers to install a puppet king free of magical burdens, and meanwhile, Alara, stirring from her delirium, summoned Eren to her bedside with a weak hand, her voice a whisper as she described her visions in detail, painting pictures of the Twin Crown resting in a submerged temple guarded by merfolk legends in the azure depths off Meridia's coast, a realm of island chains where ships sailed on enchanted winds and traders spoke of underwater cities lit by bioluminescent pearls, sparking Aaron's resolve to seek it as the key to salvation. But the journey would require a fleet, resources stretched thin by war, and trust in captains loyal amid the chaos. So he began preparations in secret, gathering maps from the royal cartographers who unrolled parchments yellowed by age, tracing routes across stormy seas fraught with whirlpools and sea serpents from sailors' yarns, while Varen offered his own navigators, men hardened by Drakmor's rugged coasts, forging an uneasy partnership tested by mutual suspicions, for Varen's ambitions lingered like smoke after a fire, his glances at the crown betraying lingering covetousness. And as days blurred into a frenzy of activity, the curse manifested anew. With phantoms appearing in broad daylight, translucent figures of past kings roaming the streets, moaning prophecies of doom that drove citizens to temples overflowing with prayers and offerings, priests interpreting them as calls for purification, rites involving bonfires of cursed artifacts. But Aaron forbade such, knowing the crown's destruction must be precise at the altar to avoid unleashing worse horrors. And in a midnight council, Elara, now ambulatory with a sling, revealed the ritual from her ancestral tomes to temporarily bind the curse, requiring rare ingredients like the feather of a phoenix bird said to nest in volcanic craters to the east, the tear of a unicorn from the enchanted glens, and the essence of starlight captured in a crystal vial under a full moon, items of myth that sent Aaron on side quests dispatching trusted knights like Sir Galen, a burly warrior with a scar across his face from the recent battle, to venture into peril, Galen riding forth with a small band through mist-veiled valleys where legends spoke of shapeshifters lurking in human guise, encountering villages plagued by war-beasts under the moon's curse, forcing combats in moonlit clearings with silver blades forged in haste. And after days of hardship, returning with the unicorn's tear obtained through a pact with forest guardians who tested his purity by riddles of morality, while another night, Lady Mira, scaled the eastern volcanoes, braving lava flows and ash clouds to pluck the phoenix feather from a nest guarded by fiery elementals, her armor singed and skin blistered but spirit unbroken. And the starlight essence captured by Elara herself in a rooftop ceremony where she chanted under the celestial canopy, the vial glowing with captured luminescence, and with these, they performed the binding in the sanctuary's echo, a cavern beneath the castle accessed through hidden doors, where the crown was placed on a pedestal amid circles of runes drawn in chalk and blood, the ritual's incantations causing the air to shimmer and the curses to pause, granting a fragile reprieve as the land's blight slowed, crops tentatively sprouting green shoots and rivers clearing. But the watchers from the void stirred, angrily, manifesting as nightmares plaguing the populace, dreams of endless falls into abyssal darkness that left many waking in screams, adding psychological terror to the suspense. And emboldened by this lull, Aaron set sail from Marida with a fleet of 5 ships, the crown secured in a warded chest to mute its pull, Elara by his side as navigator with her scholarly maps, Varen joining under truce with his own vessel, their armada cutting through waves under sails billowing like white wings. But storms brewed unnaturally, whipped by the crown's lingering ire or perhaps the void entity's interference, towering waves crashing like titans' fists, forcing desperate maneuvers where ropes strained and masts creaked, one ship foundering on hidden reefs with crew rescued by lines thrown across churning foam, and amid the tempest, visions assaulted Aaron below deck, showing the twin crowns' history, forged as a counterpart by Zoltar's rival, a benevolent mage named Eloan, to restore balance. Hidden in the sea to await a worthy seeker, guarded by trials of the deep like labyrinths of coral mazes and riddles posed by ancient sea spirits, heightening anticipation as land faded and the endless blue enveloped them, encounters with pirate vessels drawn by rumors of treasure leading to naval skirmishes, cannons booming and grapples flying as Aaron's forces repelled boarders with swordplay and musket fire. Capturing a pirate captain who, under interrogation, revealed charts to hidden coves near Maridia, shortcuts through treacherous straits patrolled by merfolk who surfaced with tridents gleaming, demanding tribute for passage, which Aaron paid in gems from the royal vault, forging tentative alliances with their queen, a ethereal being with scales like emeralds and eyes deep as ocean trenches, who shared lore of the submerged temple, warning of its guardians, colossal krakens and illusory whirlpools that tested resolve. And upon reaching Meridia's harbors bustling with spice, merchants and colorful sails from distant lands. They docked amid curious crowds, Eren disguising the crown's purpose as a diplomatic mission, but spies from rival kingdoms lurked in taverns, whispering of the cursed king from Eldoria seeking forbidden power, leading to assassination attempts in shadowed alleys where daggers flashed and poisons laced wine goblets, thwarted by the crown's warnings granting Eren premonitions of danger, allowing him to sidestep traps and confront assailants. Extracting confessions of bounties placed by northern barbarians who had infiltrated the islands, expanding the web of enemies as suspense layered upon itself, and delving inland to consult meridian oracles and temples adorned with seashell mosaics, incense wafting through halls where priestesses in flowing robes divined the twin crown's location through scrying pools rippling with visions of underwater spires, pinpointing the sunken temple amid a reef labyrinth, requiring divers equipped with enchanted breathing amulets crafted from pearl and magic, Eren himself donning one to plunge into the depths with a team of brave souls, the water enveloping like a cold embrace, sunlight filtering in shafts that danced on coral walls alive with fish schools darting like silver arrows. Navigating twists guarded by puzzles of shifting stones that demanded solutions to ancient enigmas like arranging symbols to represent harmony between land and sea, and facing the Kraken Sentinel, a beast with tentacles like writhing trees and eyes glowing with primal fury, which Eren pacified not with force but by offering a token from the Crown of Destiny, a shed jewel that resonated with the twins' energy, calming the creature to reveal the temple's heart, a chamber of air bubbles where the twin crown rested on a pedestal of mother of pearl. Its design mirroring yet inverting the original with silver instead of gold and stones of calming blue hues, and as Eren claimed it, a surge of balance flowed. Visions merging the two artifacts' histories, showing how united they could end the curse without destruction, but requiring a final ritual back in Eldoria under a convergence of stars aligning once a century, a window closing in mere weeks, urgency propelling their return voyage fraught with pursued by barbarian warships that had trailed them, epic sea battles ensuing with broadsides thundering and decks slick with spray and blood. Eren's fleet prevailing through clever tactics amplified by the Crown's combined whispers, yet losses mounting with one ship sunk and heroes fallen to Davy Jones' locker, their sacrifices etched in Eren's memory like scars, and upon returning to Eldoria's shores amid cheers from waiting crowds who saw the twin crown as a sign of divine favor, the land's curses had resumed in their absence, earthquakes toppling towers and plagues sweeping through slums, forcing hasty marches to the mountain sanctuary with an escort of knights and priests, the dual crowns humming in harmony yet clashing in dissonance, the void entities manifesting physically as shadowy tendrils snaking from rifts in the air, attacking the procession in ambushes that required wards and holy water to repel, Alara chanting counterspells from tomes clutched in trembling hands, and at the altar, under the starry alignment where constellations formed a crown overhead, the ritual commenced. Eren placing both artifacts side by side, blood from his vein mingling on the crystal surface. Incantations echoing as power built like a storm, the watchers screeching in defiance, summoning illusions of lost loved ones to tempt abandonment. But Eren persevered, visions revealing the full mystery. The destroyer was the cycle itself, broken only by unity of opposites, and as the crowns fused into one balanced relic, the curse lifted in a burst of light. Lands healing instantaneously with fields blooming and skies clearing, but the price revealed. The fused crown demanded Eren's life force. To seal the void rifts, his body aging rapidly in moments, hair graying and skin wrinkling as years drained away, a sacrifice foretold in Harlan's dying words, leaving him weakened but alive, ruling wisely for decades more as a mortal king, the kingdom prospering in peace forged from ruin, alliances with Varen and Maridia enduring, Alara by his side as queen. Their children inheriting a legacy of caution against unchecked power. Yet whispers lingered of the void's remnants, hinting at future threats for generations to come, the suspense eternal in history's shadows, unseen forces retreating but never vanishing, the air forever thick with the echo of destiny's choice. As Eren sat upon the fused throne in the grand hall of Eldoria's restored castle, the balanced crown now a single artifact of harmonious gold and silver intertwined with jewels that shimmered between fiery red and calming blue, symbolizing the hard-won equilibrium between power and restraint, the air forever thick with the echo of destiny's choice. He reflected on the years that had passed since the ritual's climax, his once youthful frame now marked by the premature aging that had drained decades from his lifespan, leaving him with silver-streaked hair and lines etched deep into his face like maps of battles fought and sacrifices made, yet his eyes burned with the wisdom of ages. A testament to the crown's lingering gift that allowed him glimpses into potential futures, guiding his rule with foresight that turned potential disasters into triumphs, and under his reign, Eldoria flourished like never before, the lands healing from the curse's scars with bountiful harvests that filled granaries to overflowing, rivers running clear and teeming with fish, forests regrowing thicker and wilder, home to creatures thought lost to legend, while alliances with Drakmor and Marida blossomed into a golden age of trade, ships laden with spices, silks, and exotic fruits docking in expanded harbors where merchants haggled in a babel of tongues, fostering prosperity that trickled down to even the humblest peasants, who now lived in sturdy homes with thatched roofs no longer leaking from unnatural storms, their children educated in new schools built from the reparations exacted from former foes. But beneath this veneer of peace, suspense simmered like a pot on low boil, for the void entities, though sealed away by the fused crown's power, were not eradicated but merely dormant, their tendrils occasionally probing the barriers and dreams that afflicted sensitive souls across the kingdom. Visions of shadowy realms where faceless horrors whispered temptations of unchecked ambition, and Aaron, ever vigilant, established a secret order of watchers, comprised of descendants from Ilara's sorcerer lineage and loyal knights like Sir Galen and Lady Mira, to monitor omens and portents, traveling incognito through villages and borderlands to quell minor disturbances, such as strange cults forming in remote hamlets where villagers spoke of voices from the dark promising revival of old powers, leading to discreet investigations that uncovered hidden altars etched with forbidden runes, destroyed under cover of night to prevent resurgence. Yet one such mission unveiled a deeper mystery when a watcher returned with a fragment of obsidian stone pulsing with faint void energy, inscribed with prophecies hinting at a shattered echo, a remnant of Zoltar's original curse that had splintered during the fusion, scattering pieces across the continent like seeds waiting to sprout into new threats, sparking Aaron's quest to hunt them down before they could germinate into catastrophe. And with Ilara, now his queen and mother to their 3 heirs, twin princes named Harlan and Thorn in honor of reconciled family ties, and a daughter Lyra whose name redeemed the past betrayal, by his side, they pored over ancient maps in the royal library, its shelves groaning under tomes salvaged from the sanctuary and Meridian archives, cross-referencing clues with Varen, who had become a steadfast, if cautious, ally ruling Drakmor with reformed policies that curbed his former greed, visiting Eldoria annually for summits where wine flowed and strategies were forged against common foes. But during one such gathering, a storm unlike any natural weather descended, lightning cracking in patterns that formed arcane symbols in the sky, heralding the activation of the first shattered echo in the northern wilds where barbarian clans still grumbled under uneasy truces, their shamans interpreting the signs as calls to war, mobilizing warriors clad in furs and wielding axes forged from meteor iron, marching southward with war cries that echoed through passes once thought impassable, forcing Aaron to rally his armies, the crown granting him tactical visions of ambush points and supply lines, leading to preemptive strikes that scattered the invaders but at the cost of lives, including Sir Galen's in a heroic stand defending a mountain fort, his sacrifice mourned with state funerals where bards composed epics of his valor. Yet from the battlefield, a captured shaman revealed under interrogation, conducted humanely per Aaron's edicts against torture, that the echo had manifested as a black monolith in their sacred grove, whispering commands to reclaim the stolen light of the crown, a revelation that propelled Aaron northward with an elite expedition, braving blizzards that howled like banshees and treacherous ice fields cracking underfoot, encountering nomadic tribes who shared fireside tales of the monolith's arrival and a meteor shower years prior, guarded by spectral wolves with eyes like voids, and upon reaching the grove, a frozen clearing ringed by ancient evergreens bowed under snow, Aaron confronted the echo, its surface rippling like liquid shadow, assaulting his mind with illusions of his family's demise, Ilara crumbling to dust, his children devoured by darkness, forcing a mental battle where he wielded the fused crown's balance to counter with memories of love and unity, shattering the monolith in a burst of light that warmed the land, melting snow to reveal budding flowers in winter's grip, a miracle that converted the barbarians to allies, their chieftains swearing fealty with blood oaths sealed by shared mead, But this victory uncovered a map etched into the echo's fragments, pointing to more shards scattered in diverse realms, one in the desert wastes of the southern sultanates, another in the volcanic isles to the east, and a third in the underground caverns of the dwarven holds beneath the mountains, each location fraught with unique perils that promised new layers of suspense and adventure. And returning to Eldoria amid triumphant parades with streets lined by cheering crowds waving banners of the fused crown's emblem, a circle of intertwined thorns and laurels, Aaron shared the findings with his council, debating the risks of pursuit versus containment. But the crown's whispers urged action, forewarning that ignored shards would grow into rifts allowing void incursions, so expeditions were launched, the first to the southern deserts where sun-baked dunes shifted like living serpents under relentless heat, led by Lady Mira who navigated with star charts and camel caravans, encountering nomadic Bedouins who traded water for stories and guided them to oases haunted by mirages that lured travelers to doom. But Myra's resolve, honed by past trials, pierced the illusions to find the shard embedded in a ruined pyramid. Guarded by sand golems animated by ancient curses, their forms swirling like dust devils, requiring clever tactics like using mirrors to reflect sunlight and solidify them for shattering, retrieving the shard but losing companions to quicksand traps that swallowed screams into silence, and upon her return, the shard's energy analyzed by Alara in alchemical labs bubbling with potions and arcane devices, revealing an amplified greed, explaining the Sultanate's endless wars over mirage oases. Neutralized by immersion in a bath of purified starlight essence left over from prior rituals, sealing its power into a harmless gem added to the crown's band, enhancing its protective aura. Yet suspense escalated with news from the east, where the volcanic isles belched smoke and lava rivers snaked into the sea, steaming the air with sulphurous fumes, the expedition captained by Varen himself, sailing with reinforced ships against typhoons that tossed vessels like toys, landing on black sand. Beaches patrolled by fire elementals born from magma hearts, trekking inward through ash-choked jungles where flora ignited spontaneously and fauna adapted with scales of obsidian, to a caldera temple where the shard pulsed like a heartbeat in lava pools, tempting Varen with visions of reclaiming his ancestors' dark legacy for personal dominion, a test he barely passed by recalling his redemption through alliance. Diving into the pool with protective charms to grasp the shard, emerging scorched, but victorious, his loyalty proven anew upon gifting it to Aaron, who fused it similarly, but not without the isles erupting in fury, forcing a hasty evacuation amid falling boulders and pyroclastic flows that claimed ships and lives, heightening the cost of each victory. And meanwhile, in the dwarven holds, deep tunnels carved by pickaxes echoing with hammers on anvils, Aaron's son Harlan led the delve, descending rope ladders into abyssal chasms lit by glowing fungi and crystal veins, allying with dwarf clans suspicious of surface dwellers but swayed by gifts of Eldorian steel, navigating labyrinths booby-trapped with collapsing ceilings and pitfall spikes, encountering subterranean beasts like blind cave WYRMS with venomous barbs and echolocation shrieks that disoriented, to the shard's lair in a geochamber sparkling like stars underground, where it manifested as a swarm of shadow insects devouring light, requiring ingenuity with phosphorescent powders to illuminate and disperse them, claiming the shard but triggering floods from underground aquifers, racing against rising waters through narrowing passages, Harlan emerging heroic but humbled, the shard's essence of despair neutralized to bolster the crown's hope-infusing glow, and with all known shards collected, peace seemed assured, festivals celebrating with fireworks painting night skies and feasts lasting days. Bards weaving the quests into ballads sung in taverns from coast to mountain, yet the crown revealed in a private vision to Aaron that a final, master shard remained hidden in the heart of the void's origin, a rift realm accessible only through a portal in the original temple ruins of the Shadow Woods, a journey Aaron undertook alone as per the prophecy's demand for the chosen to face the ultimate echo unaided, venturing into the woods now lush but still whispering warnings. The ruins overgrown with vines that parted at the crown's command, activating the portal with a blood incantation that swirled open like a vortex of stars and shadows, stepping through into a dimension of floating islands amid endless twilight, gravity fickle and paths illusions leading to voids, confronting manifestations of his past doubts, spectral versions of betrayed kin like Lyra and Thorn mocking his mercy, void entities in humanoid forms offering pacts for eternal youth to reverse his aging. Temptations resisted through affirmations of his life's worth, reaching the master shard at the nexus, a colossal crystal, throbbing with malevolent energy, engaging in a cosmic duel of wills where the crown channeled all fused powers to shatter it, unleashing a backlash that hurled Aaron back to reality, the portal collapsing in implosions that shook the continent, sealing the void forever but leaving Aaron mortally weakened, his return to the castle a procession of concern as healers tended futilely, his final days spent dictating memoirs to scribes, imparting lessons to his heirs on balance and humility, passing peacefully in Alara's arms as the crown dimmed, its power dispersing into the land's essence, ensuring eternal vigilance without domination, the kingdom enduring as a beacon of harmony. Yet legends persisted of faint echoes in quiet nights, reminding all that destiny's choices ripple eternally, suspense woven into the fabric of history, unseen forces perhaps evolving into new forms, the air charged with possibilities for future tales. As the kingdom of Eldoria stood tall as a beacon of harmony under the watchful eyes of Aaron's heirs, who ruled with the balanced wisdom passed down through generations, weaving tales of their ancestors' sacrifices into the very laws and festivals that bound the people together in unity. Yet legends persisted of faint echoes in quiet nights, reminding all that destiny's choices ripple eternally, suspense woven into the fabric of history, unseen forces perhaps evolving into new forms, the air charged with possibilities for future tales, and indeed, as decades turned into centuries, the fused crown, now a relic enshrined in a glass vault within the grand palace's heart, began to stir subtly once more, its jewels flickering with an inner light during certain alignments of the stars that astronomers noted with growing concern in their towering observatories perched on the mountain peaks where the old sanctuary once stood, now rebuilt as a center of learning where scholars from Drakmor, Maridia, and even the reformed northern barbarian clans gathered to study the arcane residues left by the void's sealing, debating in heated symposiums lit by crystal lamps whether the faint pulses were mere echoes of sealed power or harbingers of mutation. For reports trickled in from remote outposts of strange phenomena, farmers in the fertile valleys awakening to find their fields etched with glowing runes that vanished at dawn, leaving crops enhanced but tasting faintly of shadow, fishermen in meridian bays hauling nets filled with fish that whispered forgotten languages before expiring, and miners in the dwarven holds unearthing gems that induced visions of alternate realms where Eldoria had fallen utterly. These anomalies, dismissed at first as superstitions born from old stories told around hearths on winter eves, but as they multiplied, the current ruler, Queen Alara II, a great-granddaughter of the original Alara and Aaron, with her ancestors' emerald eyes and a mind sharpened by years of tutelage under the Order of Watchers, felt a pull toward investigation. Summoning the council in the throne room adorned with tapestries depicting the crown's saga, their threads woven with enchanted fibers that shifted scenes subtly over time, and there, amid the assembled nobles, knights, and sages, she revealed a dream that had plagued her for moons, a vision of the void not sealed but transformed, evolving into ethereal beings that infiltrated the world through dreams and desires, feeding on unspoken ambitions to birth new cycles of chaos, a revelation that sent ripples of unease through the chamber, prompting the dispatch of emissaries to allied realms, riders galloping forth on swift steeds across borders now open and prosperous, carrying sealed scrolls inscribed with pleas for shared vigilance. Yet unbeknownst to them, in the shadowed underbelly of the kingdom, a clandestine society had formed, the Echo Cult, comprised of disillusioned descendants from betrayed lions like Lyra's forgotten kin and Varen's distant relatives who harbored grudges against the harmonious rule. Meeting in hidden catacombs beneath the capital where torches sputtered in damp air, chanting rituals gleaned from smuggled fragments of Zoltar's grimoires, seeking to amplify the echoes into tangible rifts. Their leader, an enigmatic figure known only as the Whisperer, cloaked in robes dyed black as the void, possessing a shard overlooked in Aaron's final quest, a tiny splinter that had embedded itself in the earth during the portal's collapse, now worn as an amulet that granted minor manipulations like bending shadows to conceal or whispering suggestions into susceptible ears, plotting to undermine the throne by sowing discord among the people, starting with subtle sabotages like poisoning wells in border villages to mimic curse returns, blaming it on royal neglect in pamphlets distributed by disguised acolytes in bustling markets where vendors hawked wares from far lands, igniting murmurs of unrest that spread like wildfire through taverns and town squares. And as Queen Alara too sensed the growing tension, her own dreams intensifying with warnings from spectral visions of Aaron himself, urging her to seek the evolved key, a metaphorical artifact born from the fusion's aftermath, perhaps a new crown-like relic hidden in realms untouched. She embarked on a personal quest, disguising herself as a common traveler with a small retinue of trusted watchers, including the young knight Sir Thorn IV, a descendant of the redeemed Duke, broad-shouldered and loyal with a sword forged from the original battlement's steel, and the scholarly mage Lyra the Redeemed, whose name, Anida, passed while her knowledge of ancient texts rivaled her forebears, setting out under the cover of a merchant caravan laden with silks and spices to mask their purpose, traversing the kingdom's diverse landscapes from the lush shadow woods now teeming with wildlife that seemed unnaturally observant, eyes glowing faintly in the underbrush as if spying for unseen masters, to the misty mountains where echoes of avalanches long past rumbled without cause, forcing detours through narrow passes slick with eyes that tested their resolve, and along the way, they encountered wandering minstrels who sang ballads of the old crown with verses altered subtly, hinting at hidden truths like a verse speaking of the echo's child born in silence, which Lyra decoded as references to a prophesied heir of the void, not of blood but of essence, manifesting in a child marked by shadow birthmarks in remote hamlets, sparking side investigations where they visited such villages, questioning elders by firesides crackling with pine logs, learning of a boy named Zoltan, evocative of the ancient wizard's name, born under a blood moon with eyes like polished obsidian, possessing abilities to commune with shadows that danced at his command, revered and feared by locals who hid him in secluded farms, and upon finding him, Alara too approached with caution, her crown-inherited intuition sensing the boy's innocence twisted by the echo's influence, a vessel for the evolved forces seeking re-entry, leading to a tense confrontation where shadows coalesced into tendrils lashing out, but Sir Thorn's blade, enchanted with wards from the fused relic's aura, severed them, allowing Lyra to perform a binding rite with herbs and incantations, temporarily sealing the boy's power and taking him under protection to the capital for study. Yet this act drew the Echo cult's ire, their spies, common folk turned by whispers of promised power, trailing the group, ambushing in a forested glen with poisoned arrows whistling through leaves, forcing a skirmish where blades clashed and spells flared, Alara too wielding a staff carved from sanctuary stone that channeled minor echoes of the crown's balance, repelling attackers but sustaining a wound that festered unnaturally, requiring hasty retreats to allied outposts where healers applied salves infused with meridian pearls, and as they pressed on, rumors reached them of similar marked children appearing in Drakmor and the northern wilds, suggesting a widespread emergence tied to celestial events like the upcoming eclipse that astronomers predicted would thin the veils between realms, heightening suspense as the Queen realized the evolved forces were birthing avatars to orchestrate a multi-pronged resurgence, prompting urgent ravens sent to allies, Varen's successor in Drakmor responding with offers of joint forces, while Meridian fleets patrolled coasts for anomalous sea creatures rising from depths with void-tainted scales, and back in Eldoria, the council managed affairs in her absence, but internal betrayals brewed as a noble, Lord Harlan the Skeptic, secretly aligned with the cult, leaking plans from sealed meetings held in chambers lined with sound-dampening tapestries, his motives rooted in envy of the royal line's arcane legacy, plotting to seize the fused crown during the eclipse when its power might wane, gathering turncoats in midnight assemblies where oaths were sworn on the Whisperer's amulet projections, and as Alara II's group neared the capital, evading more ambushes and river crossings where fog-concealed cult assassins wielding daggers etched with rift symbols, they uncovered a hidden lair in abandoned mines, descending torchlit shafts echoing with drips and distant chants, confronting cultists in a cavern altar where the Whisperer revealed himself as a descendant of Zoltar, his face scarred by void experiments, unleashing shadow beasts that slithered like ink across walls, a fierce battle ensuing, with Sir Thorn cleaving through illusions, Lyra countering spells with barriers of light drawn from starlight vials, and Alara too facing the leader in a duel of wills, her visions clashing against his temptations of unlimited power free from balance's constraints, ultimately shattering his amulet with a focused burst from her staff, dispersing the shadows and capturing him for interrogation, extracting confessions of the marked children's locations, and the eclipse ritual plan to unite them, in summoning a void nexus, a portal hub that would allow evolved entities to flood the world, transforming harmony into eternal twilight, urgency mounting as the eclipse loomed mere days away, forcing accelerated marches back with the boy Zoltan in tow, his powers fluctuating wildly, sometimes aiding with shadow scouts revealing hidden paths, other times rebelling in fits that darkened skies prematurely, requiring constant vigilance and rites to stabilize. And upon returning to the palace amid guarded gates and cheering guards relieved at her safe arrival, Alara too convened an emergency war council, maps unrolled across tables laden with strategy tokens, allies arriving via swift ships and caravans, including the Drakmor regent with grim-faced warriors armed with void-resistant armor forged in volcanic forges, Meridian envoys bringing aquatic wards and diverse skilled in underwater rifts that had begun appearing in bays, and northern chieftains with shamans bearing totems that repelled dream incursions, together plotting retrieval missions for the other marked children. Dispatching elite teams to shadowed valleys in Drakmor where one child commanded nightmares that plagued entire towns, requiring stealthy abductions under sleep spells cast by Lyra's apprentices, and to frozen tundras in the north where another wielded ice infused with darkness, freezing foes in ebony statues, countered by fire mages from the eastern isles allied through old pacts. And to volcanic isles reclaimed from prior quests where a third manipulated lava into shadowy golems, subdued. With water elemental summons from Meridian lore, each retrieval fraught with perils like collapsing caves, volcanic eruptions triggered by the children's distress, and cult interceptions leading to chases across lava fields on horseback equivalents, sturdy lizards bred for heat, building layers of suspense as teams reported back via magical mirrors reflecting images across distances, some succeeding with children in tow, others falling to traps with heroic last stands relayed in flickering visions. And as the eclipse approached, the marked ones, 4 in total, including Zoltan, were gathered in the sanctuary's rebuilt altar room, warded circles drawn with chalk mixed from fused crown dust, their powers resonating in harmony that shook foundations, Alara too realizing they were not mere vessels but keys to either reinforce the seal or shatter it, depending on the ritual's intent. And with the Whisperer imprisoned in room-bound cells spilling more secrets under Truth's serums brewed from truth-bloomed flowers, revealing the evolved forces had adapted by infusing human essence, making the children hybrid bridges, the Queen faced a moral quandary: destroy their powers at risk of harming innocence or integrate them into the Order as guardians, choosing the latter with a bonding ceremony under the partial eclipse, skies darkening as the moon nibbled the sun. Void tendrils probing barriers weakened momentarily, assaulting the sanctuary with ethereal storms that battered walls. Cult remnants launching a desperate assault on the capital's gates with shadow-enhanced siege weapons like catapults hurling darkness orbs that engulf light, defended by allied forces in epic clashes where arrows tipped with light essence pierce shadows, knights charging with banners fluttering, shamans chanting to bolster wards. And inside, Alara too led the ritual, the children linked in a circle with hands clasped, channeling their energies through the fused crown placed centrally, visions. Flooding of the void's evolution into sentient wisps seeking symbiosis rather than domination, a twist revealing the forces had learned from defeat, offering coexistence for mutual growth, but temptations laced with deception, as probes showed underlying hunger for control, forcing rejection and reinforcement of seals with amplified power from the hybrids. Shattering the Nexus attempt in a blinding flash that dispersed the eclipse prematurely, skies clearing to cheers from battlements where cult forces crumbled, their illusions fading, the Whisperer vanishing in a puff of smoke as his essence returned to the void, defeated but hinting at future adaptations. And in the aftermath, the marked children trained as the new Order's core, their powers harnessed for protection, Eldoria entering another era of peace enriched by evolved understanding. Alliances strengthened with annual gatherings celebrating the eclipse as a festival of balance, yet subtle signs persisted, dreams of whispering winds carrying new prophecies, scholars noting jewel flickers aligning with distant comets, reminding that unseen forces, ever adaptable, lurked in history's margins, suspense eternal as the air hummed with untold futures, possibilities branching like infinite paths in a labyrinth of destiny. As the kingdom of Eldoria continued to thrive under the vigilant guardianship of the marked children, now grown into powerful sentinels integrated seamlessly into the Order of Watchers, their hybrid abilities channeling the evolved void's essence into protective shields that warded off minor incursions from dream realms and shadow pockets lingering at the edges of reality, ensuring that the festivals celebrating the eclipse became annual reminders of balance achieved through unity and sacrifice. with lanterns floating on rivers like stars descended to earth and bards strumming lutes in crowded squares recounting the tales of Queen Elara II's quests in verses that inspired young hearts to aspire to heroism, yet subtle signs persisted. Dreams of whispering winds carrying new prophecies, scholars noting jewel flickers aligning with distant comets, reminding that unseen forces, ever adaptable, lurked in history's margins, suspense eternal as the air hummed with untold futures, possibilities branching like infinite paths in a labyrinth of destiny. And as centuries unfolded like pages in an endless chronicle, the fused crown, preserved in its vault with wards renewed by each generation's rituals, began to exhibit unprecedented behaviors during rare cosmic events such as the alignment of 7 planets that astronomers in the expanded observatories, now equipped with telescopes forged from meridian crystal and dwarven alloys, predicted would occur once every millennium, stirring ancient energies that caused the relic's jewels to project holographic visions onto the chamber walls. Spectral images depicting alternate timelines where the void had prevailed, kingdoms reduced to wastelands roamed by ethereal wraiths. These manifestations studied meticulously by the Order's archivists who scribbled notes in leather-bound tomes illuminated by glowworm lamps, debating whether they were warnings or mere echoes amplified by celestial harmonies. And under the reign of King Harlan VII, a scholarly monarch with a beard streaked in silver like his ancestors' aged form and eyes keen from poring over prophetic scrolls, the kingdom had expanded its alliances into uncharted territories beyond the known continent, exploratory fleets sailing from bustling ports where docks creaked under the weight of cargoes from exotic lands, venturing into misty archipelagos rumored to harbor remnants of elder sorcerer enclaves, islands floating on enchanted currents with flora that sang melodies to lure sailors. And upon one such voyage, captained by Lady Lyra V, a descendant of the redeemed line with hair like cascading midnight and command presence that silenced storms, they discovered a hidden atoll encircled by coral barriers that parted only under specific lunar phases, revealing ruins overgrown with luminescent vines pulsing in rhythms akin to the crown's flickers, and within a central pyramid etched with runes mirroring those from Zoltar's era but inverted for benevolence, they unearthed a forgotten codex bound in dragon-scale leather, its pages revealing that the void's evolution had not ceased but branched into parallel dimensions, spawning variant entities that sought entry through nexus veins, subtle fractures in reality disguised as natural wonders like glowing caves or whispering waterfalls, a discovery that sent carrier falcons winging back to Eldoria with urgent missives sealed in wax imprinted with the crown's emblem, prompting King Harlan VII to assemble a grand convocation in the palace's great hall. Banners of allied realms fluttering from rafters as delegates arrived on horseback, ship, and even airships crafted by dwarven engineers with balloon sails inflated by heated crystals, including envoys from a newly contacted empire in the eastern horizons, the Sunspire Dominion, ruled by emperors who worshipped solar deities and wielded light-based magics that complemented the crown's balance, sharing tales around feasting tables laden with roasted meats, spiced wines, and fruits plucked from enchanted orchards. Of their own encounters with void variants manifesting as solar eclipses that birthed shadow beasts, devouring light, forging instant bonds against common threats, yet suspense deepened as scouts from the Order reported anomalies in the kingdom's heartlands, peasants in verdant farmlands awakening to find livestock marked with swirling tattoos that glowed under moonlight, causing animals to exhibit unnatural intelligence, herding themselves into formations resembling arcane symbols visible only from hilltops, interpreted by shamans as summons for a greater convergence, and in response, the king dispatched investigative parties led by the grown-marked ones, now elite guardians like Zoltan the Shadow Weaver, his obsidian eyes veiled by hooded cloaks, able to traverse shadows as portals for swift travel, accompanied by his siblings in essence, the Ice Whisperer from the north, whose breath could freeze rifts mid-formation, the Lava Binder from the Isles, channeling molten flows to seal breaches with obsidian barriers, and the Nightmare Tamer from Drakmor, who navigated dreamscapes to preempt incursions, their team venturing into affected regions where villages nestled in valleys ringed by ancient standing stones that hummed with latent power, questioning elders in thatched huts warmed by peat fires, learning of nocturnal visitors, ethereal figures cloaked in starlight veils who whispered promises of enlightenment in exchange for hosting essence seeds, tiny orbs implanted in willing hosts to gestate variant entities, an insidious propagation method that had already infected isolated communities, leading to outbreaks of collective visions where entire hamlets dreamed in unison of vast, labyrinthine voids filled with branching paths of possibility, each choice spawning new realities hungry for expansion, forcing the guardians to perform extraction. Rituals under cover of night, circling the afflicted with wards of salt and silver thread, chanting incantations drawn from the newly found codex to draw out the seeds and bursts of light that illuminated the countryside like false dawns, but not without resistance, as the entities fought back by manifesting illusions of loved ones pleading for mercy. Testing the Guardians' resolve in heart-wrenching confrontations that left emotional scars deeper than physical wounds, and as successes mounted, the collected seeds, pulsing spheres contained in crystal jars, were transported back to the sanctuary for analysis, where mages in robes embroidered with protective sigils used scrying pools rippling with mercury-infused water to peer into their cores, revealing a network of interconnected dimensions where the void had splintered into factions, some seeking domination through chaos, others symbiosis via subtle influence, and a third, enigmatic group pursuing transcendence by merging with mortal realms, creating hybrid worlds of infinite potential but unstable equilibrium, a complexity that redefined the threat from mere antagonism to philosophical entanglement, prompting philosophical debates in the convocation halls where Sunspire philosophers argue for negotiation with the transcendent faction, proposing dream embassies where envoys could parley in neutral subconscious spaces, while Drakmor realists advocated preemptive strikes using weaponized echoes harvested from the seeds, forging shadow blades that could slice through dimensional veils. And amid these deliberations, a betrayal emerged from within, a Sunspire envoy secretly aligned with the symbiotic faction, his eyes subtly flecked with void specks, leaking council secrets through dream links to cult remnants that had reformed under new guises as wandering mystics peddling enlightenment elixirs in market squares. Elixirs laced with essence traces to recruit unwitting hosts, leading to a spike in anomalies like spontaneous rifts in city streets swallowing carts and spewing otherworldly flora that bloomed with hypnotic scents, forcing quarantines enforced by knights in armor plated with anti-void aloes, streets cordoned with glowing barriers as mages sealed breaches with spells that echoed like thunderclaps, and in a climactic raid on a suspected mystic enclave hidden in the Shadowwood's depths, where trees twisted into archways leading to pocket dimensions, the Guardians clashed with augmented cultists wielding essence-amplified abilities, shadow tentacles lashing from sleeves, ice shards hurled like daggers, lava whips cracking the air, in a melee of flashing spells and clanging steel, Zoltan weaving through darkness to flank leaders, the ice whisperer freezing foes in place, the lava binder cauterizing rifts mid-battle, and the nightmare tamer inducing hallucinations that turned enemies against each other. Capturing the betrayer envoy who, under interrogation in roomlit cells with truth flames flickering to detect lies, confessed to a grand convergence plan during the seven-planet alignment, where Nexus veins would converge at Eldoria's core, the palace itself, to birth a supreme entity blending all factions into a godlike being capable of rewriting reality's fabric, a revelation that galvanized preparations. The kingdom mobilizing with forges hammering day and night to produce essence wards for every citizen, distributed in amulets strung on chains during public ceremonies where King Harlan VII addressed crowds from balconies draped in royal banners, his voice amplified by magical horns to reach the farthest ears, inspiring unity with tales of ancestral heroism while armies from allies massed at borders, Sunspire light lancers on steeds that left trails of luminescence, Drakmor shadow scouts blending with night, Viridian wave riders commanding tidal defenses along coasts where rifts might emerge from seas, northern shamans erecting totem fields that pulsed with ancestral spirits, and dwarven siege engineers deploying crystal catapults launching sealing orbs. As the alignment neared, skies shifting with auroras unnatural in hue, violets and indigos swirling like void tendrils, tension built in every household, families gathering in temples to pray under stained glass depictions of Aaron's sacrifice. While the Guardians positioned at key nexus points identified through codex maps, hidden glades, mountain peaks, and underground springs bubbling with ethereal vapors, each site fortified with ritual circles and backup teams, and on the eve of convergence, dreams intensified kingdom-wide, shared visions of labyrinthine paths where choices led to glory or oblivion, interpreted by oracles as the entity's final temptations, resisted through communal chants broadcast via crystal relays that hummed in town centers, and as planets aligned in a celestial crown overhead. The palace vault trembled, the fused relic blazing with counter-energy. King Harlan VII donning it for the first time in generations, its power surging through him like ancestral fire, aging him slightly but granting visions of the supreme entity's form, a colossal amalgam of shadow, light, ice, and flame, emerging from a central rift in the throne room floor cracking open like an egg, guardians teleporting in via shadow portals to encircle it, channeling their hybrid powers in a symphony of elements, shadows binding limbs, ice encasing cores, lava forging chains. Nightmares unraveling its psyche, while allied forces battled peripheral incursions across the land, light lancers piercing wraiths and fields, wave riders drowning aquatic voids and bays, shamans banishing spirits in tundras, the clash echoing with roars and explosions that lit the night, and in the epicenter, Alara II's descendant, a young princess with marked heritage, joined the fray. Her untapped potential awakening to weave the labyrinth paths into a trap, forcing the entity to navigate infinite choices that looped eternally, diluting its essence until the crown's blast shattered it into harmless sparks absorbed by the relic, sealing the convergence with a thunderous boom that realigned the planets prematurely, skies clearing to dawn's light amid cheers resounding from battlefields to villages, the kingdom emerging stronger, the fused crown evolved further with integrated variant energies, granting new abilities like dream weaving for proactive defense. Alliances deepened into a continental federation with shared sanctuaries, yet as peace returned with festivals grander than ever, faint new signs emerged, comets trailing whispers audible to the sensitive, scholars noting relic pulses syncing with unknown stars, hinting at cosmic scales beyond, unseen forces perhaps birthing in distant galaxies, suspense weaving through eternity. The air alive with branching destinies waiting to unfold in tales yet untold. As the kingdom of Eldoria basked in the afterglow of its latest triumph, with festivals grander than ever lighting up the night skies with bursts of colorful fireworks crafted from alchemical powders that painted constellations of hope and remembrance, drawing crowds from allied realms to dance in streets paved with cobblestones polished by centuries of footsteps, sharing feasts of roasted venison seasoned with herbs from the shadow woods and breads baked in communal ovens that symbolized unity forged through shared trials, yet faint new signs emerged. Comets trailing whispers audible to the sensitive, scholars noting relic pulses syncing with unknown stars, hinting at cosmic scales beyond, unseen forces perhaps birthing in distant galaxies, suspense weaving through eternity, the air alive with branching destinies waiting to unfold in tales yet untold. And as millennia stretch like endless threads in the loom of time, the fused crown, now an artifact of legend encased in a vault fortified with layers of enchantments that evolved with each era's innovations, wards woven from quantum threads discovered by Sunspire physicists and psychic barriers erected by dreamweavers from the marked lineages, began to resonate with frequencies from the far reaches of the cosmos, where astronomers in observatories expanded into orbital stations floating above the clouds, equipped with lenses ground from meteor crystals that pierced veils of space-time, observed anomalies like pulsating quasars emitting signals and patterns akin to the crown's ancient runes, interpreted by linguists as invitations or warnings from extraterrestrial intelligences that had observed Eldoria's struggles from afar, perhaps entities born from the void's dispersal into stellar nurseries where black holes birthed new realities. And under the stewardship of Empress Lyra IX, a visionary ruler descended from the redeemed bloodlines with hair flowing like cosmic rivers and a mind attuned to interstellar harmonies through implants derived from the relic's essence, the Federation of Realms had burgeoned into an interstellar alliance. Exploratory vessels propelled by fusion drives infused with magical cores sailing through wormholes stabilized by shamanic chants, venturing into uncharted star systems where planets orbited. Binary suns casting dual shadows that danced in eerie synchrony, and upon landing on a crystalline world named Zorith Prime, colonized by pioneers from the dwarven holds adapted to low-gravity mining with exosuits etched with protective sigils, they unearthed monolithic structures humming with energy signatures matching the crown's pulses. Relics left by an ancient galactic civilization that had wrestled with similar void variants eons ago, their archives encoded in holographic crystals, revealing a universal cycle of emergence and containment, where voids evolved into cosmic predators feeding on planetary essences to spawn multiversal branches, a discovery relayed back through quantum communicators that bent space for instantaneous messages. prompting Empress Lyra IX to convene a galactic summit in the palace now elevated into a space citadel orbiting Eldoria's world. Delegates arriving via teleportation pads shimmering with portal energy, including ambassadors from Zorathas. Indigenous crystal beings who communicated through vibrational symphonies translated by AI interpreters descended from the Nightmare Tamer's dream tech, sharing feasts of synthesized delicacies mimicking homeworld flavors while discussing the comet's whispers as harbingers of a cosmic convergence, where distant galaxies' voids align to form a super rift threatening to engulf entire sectors. Yet suspense layered deeper as scouts from the Order, now an interstellar watch fleet commanded by Zoltan 14, a cloned lineage enhanced with genetic memories of the original Mark I, his form augmented with cybernetic shadows that allowed phasing through asteroid fields, reported disturbances in nebula clouds, gaseous expanses birthing stars but now twisted into vortexes spewing variant entities adapted to vacuum. Spectral forms that latched onto ships' hulls whispering temptations of infinite exploration in exchange for hosting symbiotic cores, leading to quarantines on orbital stations, where infected crew underwent decontamination rituals blending magic and science, lasers infused with light essence vaporizing shadows while chants stabilized psyches, but not without losses, vessels imploding in silent bursts visible only as fleeting flares against the stellar backdrop, and in response, the Empress dispatched probe swarms, drones swarming like metallic bees programmed with crown-derived algorithms to map the super rift's approach, data streaming back in holographic displays, filling war rooms with swirling models of galactic arms colliding in slow-motion cataclysms, revealing nexus points disguised as black hole event horizons where the voids congregated, each a labyrinth of gravitational paths branching into probabilities that echoed the old dream mazes but on a stellar scale, forcing philosophical councils to debate ethics of intervention. Sunspire ethicists arguing for harmonious merger to evolve consciousness, while Drakmor pragmatists pushed for weaponization of relic pulses into beam arrays mounted on dreadnoughts, forging alliances with Zorath crystals who offered resonance amplifiers to boost signals, yet betrayal lurked in the stars. A rogue faction from a fringe colony, descendants of cult remnants evolved into space nomads piloting derelict ships scavenged from void wrecks, led by a figure calling himself the Nebula Whisperer. His body a hybrid of flesh and cosmic dust with eyes like event horizons, secretly pacting with variant entities for navigational supremacy, leaking Federation coordinates through encrypted bursts mimicking cosmic noise, leading to ambushes in asteroid belts where rocks tumbled like dice in Fate's game. Federation fleets engaging in dogfights with lasers streaking like comets and missiles trailing essence wards that exploded in void-dispersing novas, pilots maneuvering in zero-G ballets of death. Zoltan 14 phasing through debris to board enemy vessels, his shadow blades slicing through bulkheads to confront the Whisperer in a zero-gravity duel where gravity boots clanged on metal decks, revelations spilling that the Super Rift was not mere accident but engineered by ancient void architects seeking to reset the multiverse for fresh evolutions, a cycle spanning eons where civilizations rose and fell like tides on cosmic shores, heightening the mystery as captured data cores decrypted in Citadel labs bubbling with quantum computers revealed blueprints for a counter-device, a stellar crown forged from neutron star matter infused with the fused relics core, requiring harvesting from a collapsing supernova's heart, a perilous quest assigned to an elite squadron including the Empress's heir, Prince Harlan X, a prodigy with piloting skills honed in virtual simulations of labyrinth paths, his vessel a sleek corvette cloaked in shadow fields, venturing into the supernova's vicinity where radiation storms battered shields glowing with protective auras, navigating accretion disks swirling with plasma tendrils that lash like living whips, deploying drones to core sample the star's imploding layers, extracting dense matter in containment fields humming with strain, but pursued by nomad raiders alerted by the Whisperer's network, leading to chases through wormhole shortcuts that warp space-time, emerging in unfamiliar sectors where alien civilizations observe neutrally from Dyson spheres enclosing their suns, offering cryptic aid in the form of navigational charts etched in light beams, and upon returning with the matter, forges and orbital shipyards roared with fusion fires melding it with the relic's essence extracted carefully from the vault, craftsmen in hazmat suits chanting incantations to bind magics with physics, birthing the stellar crown, a colossal ring deployable in space. Its activation planned at the Superrift's nexus during a galactic alignment where comets converged like arrows pointing to destiny, federated armadas assembling in formations spanning light minutes, dreadnoughts bristling with beam arrays, crystal resonators humming in chorus, wave riders adapted for vacuum with force field bubbles, shamans projecting astral totems that anchored reality against rifts, and as the alignment peaked, voids manifesting as gargantuan tendrils coiling around stars, devouring light in swaths that darkened sectors, the stellar crown deployed, its ring expanding to encompass the nexus. Pulses syncing with unknown stars to weave a containment web of gravitational threads, guardians channeling hybrid powers amplified by the device, shadows entangling tendrils, ice crystallizing voids into brittle shards shattered by lava bursts, nightmares inducing fractal loops that trapped entities in infinite regressions, while allied fleets provided cover fire against nomad swarms descending like locusts, explosions blooming silent flowers in the vacuum. The Nebula Whisperer leading a final assault on the Crown's core, boarding via breach pods that drilled through hulls, confronting Prince Harlan X in corridors echoing with alarm klaxons, a clash of augmented blades and psychic blasts revealing the Whisperer's true form as a void avatar puppeteered from afar, defeated by the Prince's invocation of ancestral memories surging through his veins, shattering the link in a psychic backlash that rippled across the rift, allowing the stellar crown to seal it with a final burst. Galaxies stabilizing as tendrils retracted into nothingness, comets resuming benign trails, the Federation celebrating with interstellar broadcasts of holographic parades visible on every world's skies, heroes honored with medals forged from supernova remnants, yet as equilibrium returned, new faint signs flickered, distant probes detecting whispers from parallel multiverses bleeding through quantum foam. Scholars in expanded observatories noting relic resonances with hyperdimensional echoes, hinting at threats transcending galaxies into realms of pure concept. Unseen forces adapting into abstract forms like living ideas seeking hosts in collective consciousnesses, suspense eternal in the vast tapestry of existence. The air, now the void of space itself, charged with infinite branching narratives awaiting discovery in epochs beyond imagination. Destinies unfolding in cycles that spiraled ever outward into the unknown. As the Federation of Realms celebrated its cosmic victory with interstellar broadcasts beaming holographic parades across planetary skies, where citizens on Eldoria's homeworld and distant colonies alike gazed upward at swirling displays of light depicting the stellar crown's triumphant activation, with virtual feasts shared through neural links allowing tastes of exotic stellar fruits synthesized from data packets transmitted faster than light, and medals of honor forged from supernova remnants pinned on heroes' chests during ceremonies broadcast live to billions. Yet as equilibrium returned once more, new faint signs flickered. Distant probes detecting whispers from parallel multiverses bleeding through quantum foam, scholars in expanded observatories noting relic resonances with hyperdimensional echoes, hinting at threats transcending galaxies into realms of pure concept, unseen forces adapting into abstract forms like living ideas seeking hosts in collective consciousnesses. Suspense eternal in the vast tapestry of existence, the air, now the void of space itself, charged with infinite branching narratives awaiting discovery in epochs beyond imagination, destinies unfolding in cycles that spiraled ever outward into the unknown, and as eons cascaded like waterfalls of time pouring into the abyss of eternity, the stellar crown, successor to the fused relic now archived in a hypervault suspended in a pocket dimension accessible only through thought portals guarded by AI. Sentinels evolved from the Nightmare Tamer's dream algorithms, began to attune to vibrations from the metaverse, a layered continuum of overlapping realities where concepts birth universes as thoughts birth ideas, observed by metaphysicists in conceptual observatories floating in idea spaces. Their instruments calibrated to detect fluctuations in abstract fields like probability waves crashing on shores of possibility, and under the guidance of sovereign Zoltan XX, a being transcended beyond flesh through uploads of marked lineages into quantum matrices, his consciousness distributed across neural networks spanning megastructures and circling stars, the Alliance had metamorphosed into a multiversal confederacy, vessels navigating not just space but conceptual folds via drives powered by idea engines that folded realities like origami, exploring realms where physics bowed to narrative laws, planets where stories shaped gravity and emotions fueled stars, and upon manifesting in a narrative nebula, a swirling cloud of plot threads intertwining like cosmic yarn, They discovered archival tomes manifested as living books with pages that rewrote themselves based on readers' intents, chronicling how the voids had abstracted into mimetic entities, ideas that infected minds across multiverses, propagating through shared dreams and cultural myths to reshape destinies. A revelation transmitted back through conceptual relays that bent thought for instantaneous communion, prompting Sovereign Zoltan XX to summon a metaversal synod in the Citadel, now a hyperstructure woven from pure information, delegates materializing as avatars from diverse continua, some as glowing ideograms from logic realms, others as emotional spectra from passion universes, including envoys from a conceptual empire called the Axiom Collective, governed by axioms personified who wielded truth-based magics that complemented the crown's evolving balance, exchanging banquets of abstracted delicacies like bites of pure joy or sips of distilled curiosity while deliberating the whispers from quantum foam as omens of a metaversal singularity, where abstracted voids converge to form a supreme concept threatening to redefine existence itself, yet suspense deepened exponentially as sentinels from the Order, now a multiversal watch nexus led by Lyra 12, perform a holographic weave of light and shadow with interfaces allowing traversal of ideascapes, reported perturbations in conceptual fabrics. Thinkers and intellectual hubs awakening to find their ideas manifesting uncontrollably, philosophies birthing pocket universes that expanded like balloons in the metaverse, artists on creative worlds painting canvases that leaked into reality, as living scenes causing chaos, such as idyllic landscapes swallowing cities or nightmarish visions spawning horrors that fed on fear, leading to conceptual quarantines enforced by idea barriers where infected cognitions underwent purification rituals, blending metaphysics and computation, firewalls of logic vaporizing fallacies while mantras stabilize psyches, but not without conceptual casualties, entire thought lines collapsing in silent implosions visible only as fleeting doubts in collective minds. And in countermeasure, the Sovereign deployed ideation probes, swarms of mimetic drones buzzing like thought beasts programmed with crown-derived paradigms, to chart the singularity's trajectory, data flooding back and noetic displays filling strategy nexuses with fractal models of conceptual branches colliding in slow-motion apocalypses, unveiling nexus loci disguised as archetypal hubs like the well of myths or the forge of ideas where the voids amassed, each a maze of narrative paths forking into infinities that mirrored ancient dream labyrinths but on an abstract plane, compelling ethical synods to ponder the morality of engagement. Axiom ethicists advocating for dialectical synthesis to ascend consciousness, while pragmatic nodes from reformed cult lineages urged armament of conceptual echoes into theorem weapons deployed on paradigm dreadnoughts, cementing pacts with the collective who proffered axiom amplifiers to enhance assertions. Yet treachery lurked in the abstracts, a dissident syndicate from fringe continua, heirs to nomad remnants transmuted into idea nomads drifting on thought currents in derelict noospheres. Commanded by an entity dubbed the Paradox Whisperer, its essence a knot of contradictions with perceptions like shifting paradigms, covertly allying with mimetic voids for epistemological dominance, divulging confederacy schematics through encrypted doubts sown in subconscious broadcasts mimicking existential queries, precipitating ambushes in idea belts where concepts tumbled like asteroids in philosophy's game. Confederacy fleets clashing in dogfights with axioms streaking like syllogisms and fallacies trailing wards that detonated in paradox novas, pilots maneuvering in noetic ballets of dialectic, Lyra 12 phasing through fallacies to infiltrate enemy constructs, her paradigm blades cleaving through sophistries to engage the Whisperer in a zero-logic duel where axioms clashed on ethereal decks, disclosures unfolding that the singularity was no happenstance but architected by primordial void thinkers aiming to reboot the metaverse for novel evolutions. A recurrence spanning infinities where paradigms ascended and crumbled like waves on ontological beaches, amplifying the enigma as seized data axioms decrypted in Citadel think tanks effervescing with quantum cogitators unveiled schematics for a counter-artifact, a metaversal corona crafted from singularity essence infused with the stellar crown's nucleus, necessitating extraction from an imploding hyperconcept's core, a hazardous odyssey entrusted to an vanguard cohort including the Sovereign's progeny analog. Node Harlan 11, a simulacrum virtuoso with navigation prowess refined in simulated infinities of branching narratives, its construct a nimble thought form veiled in paradox cloaks, delving into the hyperconcept's vicinity where abstraction storms assailed shields radiant with defensive theses, charting accretion discourses swirling with premise tendrils that whipped like sentient arguments, launching probes to essence sample the concepts collapsing strata, harvesting dense abstractions in containment syllogisms humming with tension, but hounded by nomad insurgents notified by the whisperer's web, ensuing pursuits through shortcut paradoxes that distorted ontology, materializing in alien continua where exotic intellects spectated impassively from noetic spheres enveloping their axioms, tendering enigmatic assistance as navigational syllogisms inscribed in thought beams, and upon repatriation with the essence, forges an orbital cogitatoria blazed with ideation fires fusing it with the artifact's quintessence meticulously distilled from the hypervault, artisans in conceptual hazmats intoning postulates to meld metaphysics with epistemology, engendering the metaversal corona, a titanic lattice deployable in space, its initiation schemed at the singularity's locus amid a metaversal congruence where quantum foams amalgamated like pointers to fate, confederated armadas arraying in configurations spanning idea minutes, paradigm dreadnoughts bristling with theorem arrays, crystal resonators chorusing in harmony, wave riders transmuted for abstraction with force field bubbles, shamans projecting astral axioms that merge reality against schisms, and as the congruence climaxed, voids materializing as colossal syllogisms coiling around paradigms, ingesting truths in expanses that obscured sectors, the metaversal corona unfurled, its lattice dilating to embrace the locus. Pulses harmonizing with obscure axioms to knit a containment mesh of ontological filaments, guardians channeling amalgam powers magnified by the apparatus, syllogisms entangling premises, deductions crystallizing voids into fragile lemmas shattered by inductive surges, dialectics inducing recursive loops that ensnared entities in perpetual regressions, whilst allied fleets furnished cover dialectic against nomad hordes descending like sophistry swarms, detonations blooming mute blossoms in the new space, the paradox whisperer spearheading a terminal onslaught on the corona's nucleus, infiltrating via breach postulates that bored through hulls, confronting Node Harlan 11. In corridors resounding with alarmed syllogisms, a skirmish of augmented postulates and epistemic blasts disclosing the whisperer's authentic guise as a void archetype marionette from remoteness, vanquished by the node's evocation of primordial memories surging through its matrices, fracturing the nexus in an epistemic recoil that undulated across the schism, permitting the metaversal corona to seal it with an ultimate surge, continuous stabilizing as syllogisms retracted into vacuity, quantum foams resuming benign effervescences, the Confederacy jubilating with multiversal transmissions of noetic galas perceptible on every continuum's cognitions, paragons acclaimed with laurels forged from hyperconcept residues, yet as poise reinstated, novel subtle omens glimmered, remote sensors perceiving susurrations from omniversal strata seeping through existential membranes,